everybody, Deathstalker here. So I thought I'd tell you another interesting story from my interactions with my police friends and co-workers. Well, if you've listened to some of the other videos I've done, you know that when I was growing up, a lot of my friends went on to become policemen, and it just so happened that several of them actually patrolled the area where I lived, and some of them actually patrolled the area where I worked. So I'd actually get to see them fairly often, and every once in a while when they weren't on a call, they'd stop by to talk to me. And you know, it was actually quite funny. I would actually be going into work and they'd pull up and just outside the gate, you know, honk the horn, and next thing you know, I'm there for about 15-20 minutes catching up. Now all the co-workers that I worked with, they were kind of suspicious of me. Now you have to remember, this is the late 1970s, early 1980s. Everyone still had kind of long hair. I didn't. I kept my hair kind of short simply because it was easier to put the helmet on my bike helmet on. So I never really grew out long hair. And of course I was clean shaven, and I also didn't smoke, which was, where I worked, was unusual because about 99% of the people did. Now the one thing that was actually going on where I worked was there was some drug use going on. Now not obvious, but you could tell, you know, someone steps outside for a smoke and they come back with all googly eyes and stuff like that, and you know, stuff was going on. And not a good place to have it. Like, this was an industrial plant. Like luckily I think there was only one major injury in all the years I was employed there, like in the area where I first started working. And you know, the guy survived, but he ended up losing a leg, and that was not due to drug use. But we had you know, quite a few guys imbibing in various other illegal substances. And actually a couple of guys would always look at me once in a while when we were like in the cafeteria or the vending machine area to get something to eat or drink or whatnot. They look at me like, "You're a narc. You look like a narc." And I just sort of laughed it off. It's like, no, I had tried to become a police officer, but unfortunately I wore glasses, and they wouldn't hire you if you wore glasses. It's the same thing that happened. I was looking to get into the Air Force, and I was 17, and just as I turned 17, my vision went for a crap, and that meant I couldn't be a pilot. But I always thought it was a BS, because if you were a pilot, then all of a sudden you need to wear glasses. No problem. Same thing with a police officer. But they wouldn't hire you if you had them. So my co-workers were always sort of kidding and kind of mistrustful of me, which is fine, because I was where I worked was a place I worked to earn money to go racing, and that was about the end of it. And I worked there where I was for about 7 years, and I ended up transferring out of that area because it was shift work, and anybody who knows shift work is that you work weekends and you work night shifts and all that sort of stuff. And it really sucks if you're planning on going racing that weekend and you get told on the Tuesday you're getting moved to a different shift, and now you're working that weekend. And I missed a lot of races over several years because I could not get the time off. So I ended up finding a job in the main office where it was Monday to Friday, and it was a massive pay cut, so I had to watch my spending in racing, but at least I could go to the races. So I had transferred out, and the job I was doing now, I actually occasionally would have to go to the area where I used to work. And so I happened to pull in there one time, and one of the guys happened to see me and said, come on for a coffee. So I, what the heck, went for coffee. He told me, he says, about a month after I left, the RCMP raided the department I was in and arrested a bunch of guys for selling or dealing drugs. And I went like, what? He says, oh yeah, they apparently put a undercover officer in there as a summer student, and he was buying off the people and keeping track of who was doing what. And they came back, it says, about a month after you left, and everyone figured you for a while you had ratted him out, until they realized that it was this tiny little guy who looked like he was like 16 years old was the RCMP undercover officer. And then they went like, holy Jesus. So it turned out the area I worked, there was 2 guys there who were supplying about 90% of the drugs that was being distributed in that company. And it was, you know, it was kind of funny that they kept accusing me of being a narc, and it turned out there actually was one there, and it wasn't me. But you know, I was sort of surprised, and when they told me who it was, I went like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see it. So a couple of them apparently got, you know, fired and went to jail. One of them apparently, he didn't have anything on him, so he didn't get fired, and he was still there. And about 2 years later, the RCMP raided the place again, the same area, and nailed a couple more guys, which was absolutely hilarious. I was actually on vacation when that one happened, but it was just funny how you just had these select group of guys that were supplying drugs for the whole company, and that was a pretty big company. So there you have it, interesting little story about the police and people I work with. So I hope you enjoyed it. Deathstalker signing off.